Hello, hello. Hey everyone. Welcome to this Facebook Live. I go live every second and fourth Saturday of the month. Every second and fourth Saturday, we go live. And it's our opportunity to really connect, create community, talk about these concepts related to living an abundant life while impacted by a physical limitation. So thank you for joining me. And today's topic, okay, generally I'm talking about a broad spectrum of physical limitation, but today we're going to go a little more narrow and talk specifically about the physical limitation of pain, the impact of pain on your life. So if you are dealing with pain, um, and especially if you are dealing with chronic pain, persistent pain, this is going to be a topic for you. Um, That could also include emotional pain. If you find yourself afraid of or weighed down by emotional experiences like discouragement, fear, depression, frustration, anxiety, stress, any of those, then this topic would also be useful to you. So, what is the problem? Let me just set up the problem here with this topic, and um, it is this. I'm defining it very simply, and sometimes I go to a level of simplicity that can cause confusion, so don't let that happen, and ask any questions if you ever find yourself confused. But here's the problem. Fear of pain is stopping you from living your life. That's the problem. Pain itself is not stopping you from living your life. The fear of pain is stopping you from living your life. So throughout the next 20 minutes in this live, um, if you react with if you completely reject that idea, or you're really curious about it, um, the goal is that by the end of this Facebook Live, I've at least explained enough to describe this problem and the solution and why it matters. Okay, so we'll see if I succeed in that in any way. But here we go. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Um, just give me a yes if this is you. You want to live more and you want to live with less fear. Give me a yes. Just type yes if this is you. You want to live more and you want to live with less fear. Let me just see if I can pull up the comments so I can follow along with you all. Okay. Yes. Yes, we want to live more, right? Um, because the fear, like living in fear, um, it can be so overcoming and overwhelming and debilitating. It can completely stop us from so many things we want to be doing or experiencing. And if we find ourselves in fear, there's so much of our life that we would be living that we aren't. So if you want to live more and fear less, give me a yes. Here we go. Um, so let's see. I clarified that I'm talking specifically about chronic pain or persistent pain, and this also can apply to emotional pain. And here's just a stat. Like I just did a quick search before today to take a look at just the U.S. And I'd like you to actually guess the number of people impacted by chronic pain just in the United States. Go ahead and put a comment in. How many people do you think are impacted by chronic pain in the United States? Is it a few thousand? Is it 500,000? 1 million? How many people in the US do you think are impacted by chronic pain? Okay. I'm going to wait for a few responses to come in, and then I'll give the answer, at least the answer that I found on a Google search. Um, but why this matters, this topic of fear and pain matters so much because so many people are um, e- are going through life without living their life. um, there's so much unlived life happening, and it does not have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way when you're experiencing pain. Um, okay, so a few guesses, and maybe the guesses will continue to come in. 50,000. Um, was it 50,000 people impacted by chronic pain? Well, here's what the answer that I found. 50 million. 50 million people in the United States alone are impacted by chronic or persistent pain. 50 million people are going about their life and experiencing so much unlived life. Um, and oh my word. So if we can really support one another and understand this topic more deeply, we can we can make such a difference for so many people and ourselves. We can live life despite our pain. So let's talk about what pain is. And here's what here's kind of what I'm gonna walk through now. We're gonna talk about what pain is. We're gonna talk about relationships to get clear on how we're relating to pain, and then really what I mean by processing pain and what that might look like. So we're going to start with the definition of pain. In one word, in the comments, how would you define pain? One word. Okay, fine. If you want to use 3 words, you can use 3 words. But give me a really simple definition. What is pain? In the comments. And while those comments are coming in, I also want to just acknowledge that when we talk about the topic of pain, it can get very complex very quickly. I have um, I've like watched a lot of content. I've read a lot of content. I've been through uh, pain reprocessing therapy training, and I've learned a whole lot through that. And I can tell you that this topic of pain and the definition of pain can get very complex very quickly. And so the things I share and kind of where my focus is, I just acknowledge that I have deliberately chosen a definition that will serve us in this conversation of processing pain. And a definition that I believe um, keeps the topic simple enough that we can have some constructive conversation, okay? Because while it's important to acknowledge complexity, and it is a complex subject, ultimately the question is, how do we talk about it in a way or direct our attention in a way that um, allows us to make some progress, allows us to understand pain more, and enough that it changes our impact or changes the impact that it has on our life. Okay, so 1 to 3 words. What is pain? Okay, here we go. This is my definition, okay? And actually, this is what definition that was decided on by um, uh, a neuroscientist and a physical therapist, not physical therapist, sorry, a therapist, through this pain reprocessing therapy education that I've had, this is the definition they had, and I just, oh, it achieved everything that I am describing to you in terms of it's a simple definition. It's something we can really talk about, and for me, it made a world of a difference in the impact that pain had on my life. So here it is. Pain is a sensation. Okay, if remember my requirement for one word, that's it. If I only could use one word, that's it. Pain is a sensation. That's it. It's a sensation. If I can use more words, it's this. A sensation in your body. And that sensation can be emotional or physical. And actually, for our purposes, I would say that like the whole definition I would give includes both components, emotional and physical. And that definition is this. Pain is sensation plus fear. Okay? Sensation plus fear equals pain. That is pain. Let me just see if there's other. Oh yeah. Okay, we can even talk about. I have a few notes on this just to take a look at, and this is really fascinating, right? Pain. We have these receptors all throughout our body. They're taking information in, and those receptors are then sending signals to our brain. Once those signals reach our brain interprets those. And based on the nature of the signal, our brain might create the sensation of pain. So some people will like talk about like, is pain all in your head? Especially when it comes to the topic of chronic pain. Some people have been told this or have heard this, and they're like, some doctor or so-and-so said pain is just in my head. And I can't believe they would say that. That is ridiculous. If they just understood. And in fact, this topic of chronic pain, a lot of the heaviness, a lot of the drain comes from this feeling of being misunderstood. Because we're experiencing this pain. And my pain is related to rheumatoid arthritis, that diagnosis, and I've had chronic pain for over 15 years. And for so long, I was in this story as well. Like, people just don't understand. They don't really understand the nature of my pain. They don't understand what it's like to be in pain. They don't understand the effect it's having on me. They don't understand. And so, especially when someone says it's all in your head, oh my word, that's one of the most frustrating things to hear someone say. As I studied this topic more and received more of this training, it was really fascinating because the truth is, whether it's acute pain from an injury, whether it's emotional pain like anxiety, stress, or whether it's persistent or chronic pain, it is all in your head. All of it. All those types of pain are created in the brain. It is a function of the brain. Now, what is commonly misunderstood is, is that people say, well, if it's in your head, then it's not real. That's the false idea. It's all real. It's all real. It's all legitimate. And it's all in your head. Pain is created by the brain. You have these signals, these messages coming from your body to your brain. Your brain interprets them, and here's where that second part of that formula comes in. If there's fear, if there's some perception of danger, then the brain will create that sensation of pain. Because what is pain for? It's designed to alert you. It's designed to get your attention. And so when the brain can create this sensation that's very unpleasant, that's quite loud, that's quite um, powerful in terms of its s- sensation. It's done its job. It's been able to alert you to get your attention. All right. So that's the function of pain. It's to get your attention, and it all takes place in the brain. Um, so what's really fascinating about this is, hi Natalie, good morning. Yes, so glad you made it live. Ask me any questions. Um, we can chat. So what pain isn't? So now that we've talked about like what creates pain and the more some very simplified version of the science of it, we can now get clear on what pain is not. Pain itself is not debilitating. People will say things like this, like pain is so debilitating, it's life crushing. No, pain is not life crushing, it's not debilitating. It's a sensation, right? People will say pain is so draining. It consumes me. It takes over my life. No, that's not pain. Pain is powerful. In fact, I just saw myself use that word when I was trying to describe that alarm and the sensation that the brain creates. I just used it. I said it's powerful. And because these are words that we use, it's like easier to describe pain in that way when we can't fully simplify it. Um, but pain itself is not powerful. We'll talk more about where power comes from. Um, Pain does not have a personality. It doesn't have, we often will give it behavioral characteristics like, oh, here the pain comes again. Or we might say things like, oh, my pain is just so unpredictable. It just shows up whenever it feels like it. See how we like give it a character and a personality? Um, those are all just stories that we create. That's not actually what pain is. Pain does not have a personality. It's not a character. Um, it's none of those things. Pain is simply a sensation created by your brain. And one of the primary fuels for pain is fear. Because there's all these signals coming from our body all the time. And not all of them result in pain. The only time pain is the result is when our brain is perceiving danger. When it's perceiving danger, it's fearful of something, then it creates pain to get our attention. Because if it's dangerous, it needs our attention, it needs our response. Um, okay. If there's, I mean, I realize I'm actually now I've spent 20 minutes kind of with this introduction and going into this topic, and there's so much more we can talk about. And in fact, I might add another live before the next one just to go into some of these other details. There's so much we can talk about. But my goal today is really just to talk about this concept of what pain really is, and um, and the role of fear. So if we come back to the problem I stated at the beginning, the problem is that fear of pain is stopping us. Because what we just reviewed is the definition of pain. It's a sensation. A sensation cannot stop us from living our life. A sensation cannot crush our life. It cannot drain us. It cannot overcome us. A sensation is just a sensation. So if you find yourself negatively impacted, if you feel stuck, if you feel like you can't live your life, then take a look at the role of fear. We often direct we direct the problem at the pain, right? The pain is the problem, the pain is the problem, the pain is the problem, but pain is a sensation. So what's the problem? It's fear. Look at ways that fear might be the problem. How is fear stopping you from living your life? Ask that question and really explore it. Because if you can really discover the role that fear is playing, if you can start to see the ways that you are avoiding pain, the way that you're mad at pain, um, or the fears underlying the pain. Like for me, for many years, and I've shared this before, but if maybe you haven't heard it before, my greatest fear with all my pain, I had pain in my wrists, my fingers, um, my joints, in different places. It show up in my feet. I have a diagnosis for rheumatoid arthritis, which is a blood disease that impacts your joints. And so I had this story and this fear that my bones, my joints were brittle. And that if I engaged in physical activity, my bones would break. And it was, of course, traumatic because that's what our brain does. And so it wasn't just they would break it, they would shatter. I was so afraid that my joints would shatter if I did a push up or if I picked up my 3-year-old child. And um, so once I learned more about pain and what it is and what it is not, I was able to identify this fear. And I'm like, oh, look at me, afraid that my bones are brittle and that they might shatter. Wait a minute. Once I saw that fear, I could really kind of pick apart that story somewhere. I'm like, let me look at this a little bit closer. Is that really true? And I was able to reflect on my many, 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 many doctor's appointments and all the information I knew about rheumatoid arthritis. And I was blown away when I was like, oh my goodness, this disease has nothing to do with my bones. My bones are not brittle. It is a blood disease. My my cells are confused. They think there's an error. They think there's a problem. And so they get overactive and they start um, um, sending more activity to the joints. But the joints are fine. They're perfectly normal. They're not going to break. They're not going to shatter. And once I discovered this, I was able to reduce that fear. When I reduced that fear, I could live my life. I started doing push ups. I started lifting my children and carrying them and doing all kinds of things that I was for so long afraid of doing. And it doesn't mean the pain necessarily went away altogether. I still do experience some pain, but not as much. Because if pain is sensation plus fear, and you remove fear, you, you, you're left with a more neutral sensation. And I still get these sensations of like pressure. And I used to be afraid of the pressure. When I would do a push up or grab a weight, I have this sensation and I was afraid that my bones were going to break. So that fear created the pain. Once I got rid of the fear, I was left with the pressure, a more neutral sensation. And I'm like, oh, this is okay. That sensation is okay. I can keep doing this. And I kept reminding myself of the truth, which is that my bones aren't going to shatter, right? So that's my story. And yours it will likely be different. It depends on what kind of pain you're experiencing. But the question that you can ask yourself is, what am I fearing? There is some fear related to these sensations coming from throughout my body. What is that fear? And when you can identify what that fear is and really understand the facts behind it, because it's possible there could be some real danger, right? In your situation, there could be real danger. And what you want to do is make sure you have answered that question. Is there real danger? And if there is, let's know what that is so we're very clear about it. And then, even if there is danger, you can create safety. You can actually reduce fear. Once you've identified danger, you don't have to stay in fear of it. Actually, you can decrease your fear because you know what the danger is and how to stop yourself from that danger, right? Or how to prevent that danger. So you can actually create safety. You can reduce fear when you've identified the perceived threat. When you've identified the potential danger, you can also reduce fear. On the other hand, your story could be like mine, where you get curious about the fear and you ask yourself, am I in danger? And you find that you thought you were in danger, like I thought I was in danger of shattering my bones. But the truth is, that was not a real threat. Not a real threat at all. And when you can identify that, wow. Again, you can drop that. You can like eliminate, like, hey, listen, I've looked for the danger. I've scanned for it. I've identified this. I know it's not a real threat. and then you can drop it. And I dropped it, and oh my word, my life changed so much. I was no longer stopped by fear. I was able to live, and my relationship with pain completely changed. Marcella, I feel like it's a fear of truly feeling my emotions of anger and sadness. I've repressed those feelings for years. Yes, thank you so much for introducing this because this same concept applies to emotion. And I still am dealing with this a whole lot because I've identified this perceived threat physically, which was like the bones and joint story, and I was able to work through that. And now, guess what doesn't go away? What never goes away is emotion. We're in for life with that one. Emotions aren't going away. We're going to continue to have them our entire lives. And we will continue to experience sadness and anger and frustration. That's part of being human. And what our job becomes then is understanding, why are we afraid of it? It's a similar question that I applied to the physical pain. We can now apply it to emotional pain. Why am I afraid of anger? Why am I afraid of sadness? And when we look at emotions, we can look at, what is an emotion really? It is a vibration going throughout your body. It's a vibration. It's um, a chemical reaction, right, inside your body. Why are we afraid of that? No emotion. Hi, Arthur. Thanks for saying hi. Thanks for joining. No emotion is dangerous. You can't find a single emotion that's dangerous. And people say, oh, but wait a minute. Think about what has happened in the world because of anger. You don't say that's dangerous? But anger itself did not create harm. Anger can't create harm in the world because anger is just inside the body. It's just a chemical reaction. What creates harm in the world is fear of anger, reaction to anger. That is what then creates harm in the world and creates behaviors that negatively can impact you or others and put yourself or others in danger. Ah, Marcella, being told as a child that it was a weakness. Okay, interesting. Being told as a child that um, that emotions are weakness, right? That anger or sadness are weakness. Okay, these are the stories we want to bring to the surface because all of our fear. This is the other thing we must really understand and embrace is that there's good reason for our fear. Um, there's good reason for it. We have some evidence. We have some things we've been taught or told or personal experiences. And um, and so we must get rooted in this idea that every fear is valid. It's valid in the sense that it's real and you have good reason for it. When you acknowledge that, then you can create safety for it to be heard. It's like, hey, there's a good reason I fear anger. There's a good reason I fear crying. Being told as a child it was weakness. Wait, I saw something else about crying. Do, do, do. Um, when you validate that, then that that those stories in your mind are willing to come to the surface, are willing to be shared because you are creating safety for them to be heard. And then when you can hear them and understand the stories of fear, then you can resolve them. You can work with them. You can seek to understand them. It's like a child that's in fear. Like when my child is scared because they don't want to go in the basement because it's dark, I don't, well, if I just say, oh, come on, there's nothing to be afraid of, what I'm doing is invalidating their experience and they won't really tell me why they're afraid of the dark. But if I say, tell me more about that. You're scared of the dark. I want to understand that more. Why are you scared of the dark? Then their real reasons for the fear start to come forward and we can bring those into the light Bring them out of the dungeon and look at them and talk about them. Heal that fear. And so when you surface things like, hey, I was told as a child that this is weakness, that I shouldn't cry or I shouldn't be sad, it's a sign of weakness, you can start to really challenge that. Like, is that really true? Is it really true that to be sad and to cry is a sign of weakness? Just because I was told that doesn't mean it's the truth in the world. And this is where I also would invite God into the conversation. I like to take these kind of fears and then even take them to prayer and say, Father, what am I to know about this? What am I to know about this fear? Is it true that sadness and crying is weak? Tell me what I am to know about this. And then just listen. When you focus on Him and Christ and you open up your mind, and if you don't believe in God or Christ, you can do this activity through intuition or your own free flow of thinking, and you can really just ask, is this really true? What else am I to know about this fear? And you'll discover all kinds of things, and a lot of those things, that discovery process is the process of healing, and that is precisely what I mean by processing pain. Okay? Processing pain is when you are being present with, creating an understanding of, and resolving your experience with pain. Okay? Being present, creating understanding, and resolving your experience with pain. If you ignore and avoid pain, guess what it'll do? It'll keep alerting you. It'll keep sounding the alarm to get your attention. Because its purpose is to get your attention and to respond to the perceived threat. Is there really a threat here? Is there danger? And if you ignore it, it hasn't done its job, so what will it do? It'll keep doing its job and giving you pain. If you respond to it and get present with the pain, seek to understand it, surface the fears, then you can resolve it. And once the fear and the perceived threat is resolved, there's no reason for the pain to continue. And what often might be the case is the pain will decline. It'll become less, or it'll at least change in form. You'll experience it differently. You'll be able to relate to it in a new way. Now that you've been present with it, you've understood it and you've resolved it. So this is how we process pain. And I have a document that has a series of questions to help you go through these steps of being present with, understanding, and resolving pain and fear. If you want that, there's a link in the comments. I think the link actually sends you to it. You'll get the Get Unstuck formula, which is a great place to start. But you'll get the Unstuck formula. When you go to this link and put in your name and email address, you'll get the Unstuck formula. And later today, I will email this document that has all the notes from this live, and it has a series of questions to help you process pain. So if you'd like it, go ahead and click that link to get the Unstuck formula. And once you add your email address, of course, I'll be able to email you the document to process pain. Thank you so much for joining me, and share this. Share this with anyone who you think would benefit from understanding pain at this level, and can process pain to change how they relate to it, and so that you can have more conversation. It's so fun to be able to share these concepts and to talk to other people about them. So you can really understand them. And of course, I'm one of those people you can keep talking to about them. So please feel free to comment more, message me, and we can continue to talk about these principles around processing pain. And I can't wait to continue that dialogue. And every second and fourth Saturday of the month, I'll be here live. As I mentioned, I might add another live just to continue this topic because there's so much on processing pain that can be discussed. So keep your eye out for that. And till then, see you next time. Bye, everyone.